it's nice to get to be here again and talk to everyone, get to share one of the biggest parts of my life with all of you guys. And I know the gentlemen that I'm working with on this podcast all have some sort of interest and passion into Star Wars. But without further ado, we will be getting into the heart of the show. So, as I said before, we've got some returning people and some new people. So, of course, you guys, if you were here last time, you remember Hobbs. He's my homie. Hobbs, give the people a quick little reintroduction of yourself, please.
I am Hobbs, Monster Hunter for Nemesis and Advanced GG, here to give you some news about mostly Star Wars games and some lore. Because I am a huge Star Wars gamer, I've been that way since I was in the second grade. So yeah, been watching Star Wars since I was about 4 years old, thanks to my grandparents. And oh yeah, we got a new toy to show off later on, so we'll be talking about that when we get into my part.
An old school homie from high school is also joining us on the podcast. He will be going by the name Winshi, and he is our resident Mandalorian expert. Hunter, go for it.
Sakuya Nade, what up, everybody? I'm Hunter, Mandalorian fanboy since I was a kid. Started watching with my grandfather when I was like 4 or 5, and it's been Star Wars everything ever since. I had a wedding recently where we had a Mandalorian and Stormtroopers and Darth Vader costumes all over the place. It was a really great time, and I've read like almost every single book, and my birthday's on Star Wars Day, so I'm the ultimate fan here. I might not have as many lightsabers as Nikita, but you know, it is what it is. I'm happy to be here.
That's cheating, Winshi. That's not fair.
It's totally fair.
Your parents
I came out
must
the
have
womb
planned
ready.
that. Yeah, your parents planned that. I know it. All right, and then last but surely not least, we have good old Bonkety. Mr. Bonk Bonk has been a friend of mine since also high school. I believe I met him a year before I met Hunter, and we've been friends ever since. We've had a couple of spats, but I mean, I don't think there's anyone I'm friends with that I haven't had a spat with. So, Bonk Bonk, take it away.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Guess I'm pretty much here just to keep everything grounded so these guys don't nerd out too much. I've watched basically all the trilogies, and that's my baseline. So, yeah.
All right. One of my long-standing favorite characters, of course, it's kind of, I don't want to say like expected, but everyone who has watched anything Star Wars knows the Skywalker name. And so Luke Skywalker is a character that is really close to me for a lot of reasons. You know, I just think he's overall one of the coolest characters, at least as far as the Legends timeline is concerned. And even when you think about canon, you think that, oh, hey, Luke Skywalker, you know, he is the last of his kind, the last of the Jedi trained by another Jedi. And so he's got a lot to love from both timelines, but he's also very different in both timelines. And basically today's episode, we're going to be exploring some of the differences, some of the similarities, stuff that we like, stuff that we don't like, stuff that we wish we would have seen, and comparisons between Luke Skywalker from canon and Luke Skywalker from Legends, basically. So in your guys' opinion, who do you think was the stronger of the Lukes? The Luke that is from the Legends or the Luke that we see in the sequel trilogy?
Yeah, Legends, Luke is definitely the stronger of the Lukes, 100%. No questions asked. The Luke that we see in the movies, you know, in the sequels, it's definitely a weakened Luke, definitely a Luke who's left the path, you know, gone away from what we originally saw Luke. It's definitely a stark contrast to the original trilogy. But in Legends, we have like a really long a long history of what Luke has done, and he's definitely had some weak points, quite a few actually in Legends, but he's still stronger, I would say, in Legends. He always comes back, whereas Luke in the sequels, man, just died off.
Yeah, I really kind of agree with that. Like the Luke that we see in Legends is like, as a person, just feels so different because, you know, the Luke that we see in the canon stuff, he's a hermit basically. Like he wants to be by himself, all alone. And the Luke that you see in Legends is literally the exact opposite. Like every time he goes until the very end of the timeline books wise, he never wants to be away from it. He's forced to go away. Like when he gets exiled from Coruscant, like of course, like he's forced to be apart from the Jedi Order, but even then he's still like directly involved through like these roundabout ways, using his son, because his son Ben is technically not excommunicated. He's just hanging with his dad. And it's so weird to see this Luke that is just completely different from that. Because like me and Hunter grew up with these books that we were thinking were always going to be the story. And, when Disney gets control of it, they end up not being. And it's just, it's such a different Luke. It's such a different Luke.
Anybody thought that I was going to say that the canon Luke was better? No. Legends Luke definitely takes that. Because, man, I was there for a lot of Legends Luke, and it disappointed me when we got what we got. Like the Luke from the Jedi Academy series and whatnot, that trained, that remade the Jedi Order with Kyle Katarn. The Luke that fought that clone of Palpatine. The Luke that went through kind of sort of the same thing that his father did, fell to the dark side a little bit and then came back. That's the Luke I wanted. And I'm sad that we didn't get that.
Yeah, definitely. And it's another thing too that I think about often, and you mentioned it, is like I you know what, I could be wrong. I don't know that the canon Luke has that same struggle with the dark side. And I think that's something that's really important for our Legends Luke, because he learns about the light side. He learns about the dark side. We know that he has a different view on love than Jedi for thousands of years previously had, where he believes that love is not an inhibitor, something that draws to the dark side, but instead strengthens and empowers the light side, which is something that not exactly. I miss her. I miss her so much. But it's something that, like, not only does Luke see, his father Anakin sees it. There are other Jedi within the Order during the time of the Clone Wars that see it. Revan sees it. That connection is not necessarily a way to. I mean, like, if abused or followed through incorrectly, yes, of course, it can lead to the dark side. But you can say that about most things. But the fact that Luke in Legends, in his establishment of the Academy, allows them to marry, because like two of my favorite Jedi Masters of all time are Cam and Tion Solusar, and they are just straight up the it couple as far as the Jedi go. I mean, they're married, they raise all of like the younglings in the temple to become Jedi Knights, like, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that relationship. And that's something that like Luke pursues in Legends timeline. As far as canon is concerned, I mean, there's no Mara Jade, so we don't really know what his love life was. He's a hermit, which would never happen because he would never leave the stuff that, like, when I found out that Luke in canon gave up because he feels like he failed the future generation of Jedi and just abandoned the cat. When I heard that, I was like, Luke would never do that. Like, I mean, he failed a couple times when he was starting in Legends. He still didn't give up. Where did this come? Where did this Luke come from?
I wanted to stand up and scream like, that Luke's a bloody spy.
Yeah, I think they lied a little bit about his reasonings for leaving. Like they said like he felt, like he failed the new Jedi Order, right? But in reality, he was just scared. He just gave in to the fear, is in my opinion, because we see him like he builds up this new Jedi Order, and then he gets like one vision or two or three or whatever, from big boy Snoke, and it's like, look, your boy Ben's gonna go evil, right? And he's like, damn, I gotta kill him. He just gave into the fear. He was scared that he was gonna tear down everything he built up, and then he realized that he was, giving into the dark side, just giving into the fear, to the passion, right? And then he just cut himself off from the Force because it destroyed what he had built. He was just too scared of coming back. We see in when Leia and Han and them in Cloud City are in trouble, right? He leaves, Dagobah from training with Yoda because he feels that they're in danger, right, across the galaxy. But then Rey shows up to, meet with Luke, and he's like, where's Han? He has no clue what's going on because he hasn't touched the Force in how long? I mean, we saw what that did to Obi-Wan in the Obi-Wan show in canon, right? Like, you cut yourself off from the Force and you just get weak as heck.
You see it in the what's the
Fallen
name?
Order?
Yeah, Fallen Order.
Mm-hmm.
Seer, between Seer and Cal.
Yeah, they cut themselves off from the Force, and it's like I mean, you would imagine it's like, I think they describe it in one of the Legends books, was like when you cut yourself off the Force, it's like ripping off one of your limbs that you're just used to having at that point, and now you no longer have it. So it's kind of awkward to just do everyday things at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So Luke was willing to cut off a limb essentially because he was scared of, screwing up again or whatever, the dark side taking over. But I mean, he just let it happen anyway.
Yeah, and I think that's something that is also fundamentally different between the both, because the Luke of Legends, he'll fall flat on his face and just get right back up and go back through. It does not matter.
Yeah, every other book there's
happens
some
to-
dark sider that draws him into the dark side, right? Like,
Right.
Hey, Bonk Bonk, question for you, since you're the least Star Wars knowledgeable technically. Was there anything that you really noticed between the original trilogy and the sequel trilogy about Luke that kind of irked you?
I mean, he mainly just looked underpowered. He just, outside of and I can't remember the scene exactly, but where he's basically getting blasted by that ship. That's the only significant thing he really did outside of like trying to
You're
help
talking
Rey.
about in The Last Jedi when he like force projects himself across the fucking universe?
Yeah, outside
Now
of that,
that-
like,
wasn't even there.
yeah,
Now that I thought was pretty cool. That was probably like one of the best parts of The Last Jedi, was that scene and Holdo. But I thought that part was pretty cool. But yeah, he definitely did seem underpowered in my opinion, at least from the movie standpoint. Now, we're still getting books about this time period, so maybe there's something we're missing. Maybe there's something that we haven't yet discovered about that Luke Skywalker. But the whole the hermit thing was Yoda. Like, that was Yoda's thing. And I feel like Luke forgot who he was and fell into what he thought he needed to do. Right? Because, like, I guess he didn't know much about the Force in general until he met Obi-Wan. And then it's Yoda who finished his training. So I guess when things went bad, he was like, well, I guess I'll do what Yoda did in Time of Crisis and go hide out in the middle of bumfuck Russia and then just hope someone finds me when they need to be trained.
Seriously, it's like when you see a boss character use a weapon and then you're able to get the weapon is just amazing, or you get to use it for 2 minutes and it's a fantastic weapon. And then they say, okay, you have now obtained this weapon and you can't do half of the stuff that you were doing before. That's what it felt like to me. Because it's like I was like, this definitely isn't the Luke that I know of. The Luke that I know of doesn't become like Obi-Wan or Yoda. Again, he rebuilds the Order and tears ass across the galaxy.
Okay, so that being said, which one do you think was more true to being a Jedi? Do you think it was canon Luke, or do you think it was Legends Luke, and why? Because you also got to understand that the sort of, and depending actually in both timelines, the definition of being a Jedi changes post Order 66, right? So who do you think was closer to being a true Jedi, and do you think that they were closer to being to a true Jedi before Order 66 or after Order 66?
All right, I'll take it. So the Luke we see in Disney canon is true to what a Jedi was before the fall of the Republic. They were like prideful, thinking like they're going to rebuild whatever, their stuff's not going to fail. And then one little bump comes along in the road and then everything falls apart, right? They all like start to, I mean, seriously, like, he's got one Force vision and all of a sudden, he tears apart everything he's built up. Like, that's definitely, the Republic, kind of thinking, right? The Jedi like thought they could do no wrong, everything was great. And then, one bump along the road, and then all of a sudden they're generals in an army, and then they're all dead. They made so many poor decisions just because I think, a lot of it's because they were prideful, because they're like, we're the Jedi, like, we got this. We're great. We're peacekeepers. But then the peacekeepers are being used, as a war machine. I think he's more like that, and then one bump along the road, runs away, hides. He's like, this is it. We're all done. No more Jedi. Same thing that they did when Order 66 happened.
Okay, so then the follow-up question for you is, do you think Luke of Legends was the better overall Jedi?
If we're saying somebody who stuck to the teachings of his teacher and just carried on with their legacy, canon Luke is more like that. However, if we're talking about somebody who like follows the, peace and being, being like just a general good person, rebuilding an order, training the younglings, like protecting people, Legends is way better at that. I mean, we haven't seen much instances of canon Luke doing actual Jedi stuff after the fall of the Empire, except for the like few minutes where we see him pick up Grogu. So there's definitely a lot lacking there in the timeline. I'm hoping we get some more like a little bit more Luke stuff in the coming like shows and books and movies. But if we're talking sticking to their guns, sticking to the this is the Jedi way and we have to follow it and no attachments and that kind of thing, canon Luke is more of it. But if we're talking about like peace, love, unity, that kind of thing, Legends.
See, you know what? I can agree with that. I definitely can. I personally, the way that I see it is I kind of compare them to like different characters in animes that I've seen. I know it's nerdy, but I like that because that's the best way that I can understand it and I can get other people to understand it. So like when I think
Because this
about
isn't nerdy.
yeah, exactly. So I always think about Legends Luke like All Might from My Hero Academia. He's the symbol of peace, the symbol of hope. He's there and he's always there until, when the time comes and he isn't. And that's kind of how the timeline book wise for Legends ends. Like he's like, hey, it's finally time, I'm stepping down, I've done all this, I've been fighting for 40 goddamn years, I'm tired, I done trained a whole academy, y'all should be good. Like y'all were good when they exiled me from Coruscant. Y'all should be good now. Like I'm finna go chill. My wife is dead. My son done growed up. I'm finna go be a lonely hermit now. Like, and that makes sense. Like when you think of Luke as a hermit, like getting to that point after fighting for the galaxy for 40 odd years. Like, okay, fine. You've deserved your hermit time. Go be alone. Drink your blue milk and eat your potatoes and be okay. But when I think about like the Luke from canons, I always like it's hard for me to find like an exact accurate character of who he's like because there are so few MCs out there that are just like, all right, I messed up, bye, and they're gone. And then they only come back when they're like, oh well, maybe I should do something kind of cool and then die. That's just how canon Luke feels to me. Is like he doesn't want anything to be a part of it. He's so different from Legends Luke. The Luke that I know, and Mark Hamill has even said this, is not the Luke that I'm seeing now. Like, cause I can't imagine a Luke that's out of contact with Han and Leia. I can't imagine a Luke that would leave R2 behind. I can't imagine a Luke that would be out there and have someone come seek them out when they know that they have tried to hide from people and be so unreceptive to them from the get-go and have to be won over. Like, it's just so drastically different. It's just completely different. And that's my take on it. I always think that the truest Jedi will be the Legends version. Like I understand what you're saying, Hunter, and I agree to some sense, but I don't care if you're talking about pre-Order 66 or post-Order 66. I gotta give it to Legends. I'm sorry. I as cool as the canon Luke can be sometimes, the other Luke was always kind of, you knew what he was going to do. You knew he was going to always rely on the Force, have faith in the Force. It may waver occasionally, but something always pulled him back, whether it was the love for his son, the grief that he went through losing his wife, or the love that he received from his sister and brother-in-law. He was always Luke,
Oh, yeah. Legends Luke definitely embodies what it means to be a Jedi, like what they should be, right? What they say they stand for. But canon Luke is more embodies what they actually were, is kind of how I view it.
Flawed and ugly, and they probably smelt like mothballs. I don't know.
How many robes did they actually have? They probably all smelled like mothballs.
Yeah, probably. I don't know. The first time I ever saw Yoda, I was like, he probably smelled like mothballs.
In my opinion, it would definitely have to be Legends Luke, And all the points that were given were all spot on. So I'm not even going to add to that because it's all true, all of it. But no, like with everything that he did throughout, like the stories, even when he was a side character in some of the other games, it's just it felt like, you know, once he came, you know, it was just like, oh, here's this Jedi every single time. And again, we don't know. Of course, we don't know much about what happened between, you know, Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens. But I was like, that just doesn't. I didn't believe it was Luke. It was just not. Didn't convince me that that's what would happen to Luke at all. And in all three of the movies, it was just like I feel like they're trying to go for this whole old kung fu master thing with him, and it's not working for me. Because like the Luke that I remembered, if that Luke met Rey, you know, he would literally sit there, listen to what she had to say, and you know, he would tell her that he would train her and then take action. You know, he would go like, there's something going on. I'm clearly the person that needs to be the one to take care of this. So I'm going to take care of this.
Have you
But,
heard the theory about Snoke being a Luke clone from the hand of Cloud City?
Of Cloud City, I heard that one too, and I was like, if that's true, that'd be insane. That was, if it turned out to be that way, I would have been like, wow, you guys actually had the guts to do that. I'm here for
I think we're gonna find out. There's quite a bit of like credible evidence for that case, but I want to see how that plays out. Like I am actually really, that would be a really cool thing, because like in Legends, that same hand is how we got the clone Luke that was there with the clone of Jorah Sabaoth, and they have a fight.
Yeah, I remember that.
But it was because of the hand from Cloud City. So it'd be cool if they kind of tied that into the canon timeline. I would actually be down for that. I would 100% be down for that. But the part
that all the Thrawn stuff, right? Like,
yeah,
so,
the Thrawn
I mean,
stuff.
we're getting all that stuff coming up. So I mean, there's definitely potential for that. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe that was the Hand of Thrawn duology. It was definitely Timothy Zahn who wrote that. So because he had to tie in his Outbound Flight stuff. So. But the other thing that I'm not gonna lie, the stuff that I was really looking forward to, man, let me tell you something. Luke in the Legends timeline, when it comes to love, is a mess. This man falls in love with like a secret Sith. He falls in love with a goddamn computer. Like, I'm not joking. This man actually cuddles with a spirit locked inside of an entire computer. Like, I wanted.
You talking about Callista?
I'm talking about Callista. So basically.
Oh, Callista. Oh my lord.
For those of you who are unfamiliar with the Legends timeline, basically, Palpatine was doing a lot of shit that we ain't even know about. Like, this man was literally a galaxy brain. And so he had another super weapon, different from the Death Star, but still equally terrifying, called the Eye of Palpatine. And so basically, sometime around the end of Order 66, this sect of Jedi who were like, they were basically the weirdos of the Jedi. They were allowed to marry and have interpersonal relationships and stuff. And they're around, running around the galaxy trying to stay hidden. And they end up coming across the Eye of Palpatine, and Callista. It's Callista Ming, right? I believe that's her full name, and her partner. I can't remember what her partner's name was, but basically they're on this ship. They're trying to get off, and her partner can't survive, so he ends up giving his life to save her. But she ends up getting caught also, so she transfers her essence into the eye to try to like take control of it so that it doesn't go haywire and is unleashed upon the galaxy. Well, fast forward I think it's about 20 years from that moment. Luke is going around the galaxy trying to figure out, learn as much as he can about the Jedi of the past, try to become the master that people need, start, making the new Jedi Academy and stuff. He comes across the Eye of Palpatine and gets to like a main room with the computer and has like a force vision where he's straight up booed up with the spirit of the Jedi that's inside of the Eye of Palpatine laying together, she rubbing on him, he rubbing on her, and he wake up and he like, yeah, I gotta have her. And just I find that story so hilarious. Homie was really out here so thirsty he fell in love with a computer. Like I wanted that to be a story. Like
and then she goes into the body of Mer something, right? And comes out of the Eye of Palpatine, and then he's chasing her around the galaxy when she's in a different body.
Oh, yep.
And then she gets taken over by Abeloth, and he realizes he still loves her, but then he's able to, like eventually detach her from it. And
yeah, that whole story is wild from start to finish. I mean, like because she transfers her body back into a body that wasn't hers, because the person who she did transfer the body like willingly gave up her body since her lover had something happened to her lover. I forget what it was. I think he was a droid, right? He was a soul that was put into like a droid. Can we get a fact check on that? Brick 3PO? But I believe her boyfriend
Mingla.
Yeah, I believe her boyfriend Cray. That's what her name was. And her boyfriend was like put into the body of like a cyborg or a droid. But Callista, when she took over Cray's body, she couldn't access the Force unless it was the dark side. And so she left. She left to try to like find herself, find a way. Because she was like, if I have to use the Force and it's only the dark side, I'd rather not use the Force and I'd rather not bring you down. So she leaves Luke heartbroken at this point. But then like 20 years after that, he finds her again and she's been possessed by this Force deity essentially, and is trying to take over the universe. I was like, my man really lost his wife and is going through it and seeing all of his exes possessed by this Force deity. Like, could you? That is like dream nightmare for me. Like, imagine finding the one for you who is like, you can share every bit of your being with them. They share every bit of their being with you. You lose them to your crazy ass nephew who poisons them. And then all of a sudden, all your exes come back possessed by some Force god and you gotta kill them all. I guess, you know what? Nah, I'd be okay with that.
I mean, Lamaya was one of his exes too. She wasn't possessed though. He just offed her because he thought she was the one that killed Mara, right? He gets Lumaya coming back. He's got Callista coming back. Yeah.
But yeah, that death was understandable. If the person who was, I don't care. No, Lumia was guilty regardless, because she was the one training Jason, and Jason killed Mara, and she trained Jason. So by default, she also killed Mara. So Luke deserved to murk her ass. She needed to go. She had to go.
Yeah.
I wish we had that sound clip of "you need to leave," because that was her. But yeah, I know we kind of got off track, but that was one thing that I really wanted to see this Luke, like in regards to this Luke. I wanted to see the relationships, because I feel like even though a lot of these relationships, like whether it was Lumia or Alana from the Fallen Nasi, or Callista, regardless of which one it was, Luke talks about what he learned about love from each of those and how it made him a better Jedi. And like, for those of you who don't know, Mara Jade, who ends up being his wife and they give birth to Ben Skywalker, Mara Jade was definitely something special to Luke. Started off as an assassin who wanted to kill him. Just straight up murk him. She was the hand of the Emperor. She was a Force sensitive, but didn't really know how to use her abilities at the time. And basically what happens is Luke and Mara kind of end up becoming intertwined in a sense, because Luke was always working with this one mercenary group run by a dude named Talon Card, who had took Mara in as basically his right hand. And she started learning her Force powers, and she's actually the person who coined the term danger sense, because that's what she called it. Like, she could always feel something going wrong because the Force was letting her know, and she's the one who coined the term danger sense. And you just got to think about it. Going from an assassin hell-bent on killing Luke to a liaison with a mercenary group to provide him information or backup when needed, whatever it may have been, to going to a hidden facility of the Empire of the Hand, fighting back to back in a room that's flooding with a bunch of droids trying to kill you, and all of a sudden you sync up with this person in the Force and you're just kind of like, yeah, I love you. Like that is, I love that story so much. Like I just love that story. That is such a good story to me. Like they sync up in the forest, they're fighting back to back, and then they fall in love. Luke's just like, "Will you marry me?" You know, like I have seen you in a way that I've never seen anyone else. You have seen me in the same way. Let's be together. That is a beautiful story.
You know, according to our boy Wikipedia here, Luke had 13 different romances.
Oh, it was 13. Okay, see, the books cover 4
Yeah.
or 5, I think. 13. Yeah,
Uh,
homie was out there trying to spread his seed.
Number
Looking for
1 is
love in all the
Leia
wrong
on the
places.
list.
Wait, oh
Wow.
god. Okay, let's
Number 1
not
on the list is Leia.
we're not gonna talk about that. We're not gonna I'll never get over the kiss and then you're my
Yeah.
sister Leia. I've always known. Like what, okay, all right. I guess they're from Space Alabama.
You
You damn Skywalkers.
God, all of
Keeping it
them
in the
crazy.
family.
backwater farm boy.
And
You know?
no, go ahead. No, say it.
No. When he said backwater farm boy, it's just like,
That's what I was thinking. Hey, backwater farm boy from Space Alabama, you know?
Oh man. Yeah, basically.
I mean, you got to think about it. His parents were technically his uncle and his aunt, so it makes sense. The different interpretations of Luke okay, I can't even say different interpretations. The canon interpretation of Luke makes me appreciate the Legends Luke so much more. It makes me see that I don't know. I also guess this is the okay, so the Luke from Legends is the Luke you get when you have a team of, I believe anywhere, just depending on what series you're talking about, you have a team of 7 to 12 authors working collaboratively on a story that needs to have continuity, still be good, still have plot development and character development, and tie in everything that you know previously, bringing, moving it forward. That's the one thing that I love about Legends timeline is like no book's information goes unwasted, regardless of how small a Legends book is. If it was only a one-time book from an author, at some point after that book is written, it gets referenced, if not once, more than one. It's something, it builds upon itself. That's what I didn't see in both the canon book line and the canon movie timeline. Is like there's a lack of continuity. And though we don't get to see that continuity in any media outside of the books for Legends, what I am thankful for in canon is using the media of the TV shows to fill in some gaps. The way I was talking to Hunter about this the other day, and the way I kind of saw the canon timeline when it first came out, if you're talking about like the sequel trilogies, maybe like Rogue One and some other one-off stuff, it's like doing abstract art. You have this canvas, and if you think of the movies as like 3 different paint colors, it's like taking a big glob of that paint and just throwing it at this fresh white canvas. And that's what we got in the beginning. So if you saw like a canvas with just 3 big old color blobs on them, you'd be like, what kind of art is this? What the hell is this? But what has helped is not only the canon books, but the canon series that have come since then, and even some of the other canon movies. It's kind of like adding these different colors and different brush strokes. So now you originally started with 3 big splats on a canvas, and now there's more detail to these splats, and you can now start sort of seeing the bigger picture that comes from this abstract style of art. And that's the one thing that I like, but I wish that had been done from the beginning the same way the books and Legends were, which is that they were sat there, they were collaborated and corroborated upon between all these authors, building upon the knowledge that they had to bring stories that we had not yet seen before. And I just feel like I didn't get that from canon in the beginning, and now that I'm getting it, it's making it sort of okay, but I'm still hurt. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
I'm glad they're kind of going back and adding these in between stuff and making things a little bit better. But I wanted that from the get-go, and that's probably one of the reasons for all of my disappointment with the sequel trilogy in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest thing the sequel trilogy suffers from is it felt like Disney was just trying to like rehash the entire original trilogy and just go beat for beat with that. Like you were saying before, like Yoda, that was Yoda's thing to be a hermit, and they just forced Luke into that role.
Yeah,
Basically.
yeah, I can see that being something that Disney did and probably would do. The other thing is that I don't know, man. I feel like you have been handed one of the greatest sci-fi series of all time, you know, like it may not be the greatest, but it's definitely one of, you know. And you have a trilogy set to come out that was not the most meticulously planned, collaborated, whatever you want to say about it. Trilogy of our generation is just what irks me. Like, you didn't have the same director for any of them. The continuity is kind of all over the place. So many different unanswered questions. Like, that was the thing about, so if you take each trilogy as a whole, you take the original trilogy, the OG. And for the time, it was good movies. Like, you can make fun of them now, but for the time, good movies and good Star Wars. The plot followed a line that you could kind of guess where it was going. There were plot twists, which is okay, but like the story was good. Now, fast forward to the prequel trilogy coming out. At the time, those movies were not the greatest, and they're still not the greatest, but it was still good Star Wars. Like, at the end of the day, it was good Star Wars. You got where Darth Vader came from, the setup of the prophecy, everything that you know, like the slight unanswered questions that were present for the OG trilogy got answered in the prequel trilogy. But then you get to the sequel trilogy, and not only are they bad movies, but they do have moments where they shine. I don't want to take away from them. They're bad movies and bad Star Wars. Like, the story doesn't follow any kind of progression that makes sense. And when you get to the last movie, instead of it being the okay, this is what they left out in the first two movies that we were missing, that makes it all make sense now. You didn't get that. You got more questions. Somehow Palpatine has returned. What the
what? What? I remember when I first heard that line, and I told my friend, I was like, are you trolling me? And he was like, no, that is an actual line in the movie. He was like, that is an actual line in the movie. I'm like, no. They have to explain it. And he's like, trust me, they're not gonna.
Now but now, see, back then I thought the same thing. Now they're getting into it. Like, now you can kind of see, especially with like the what you learn from the Mandalorian. Like, okay, well, you can kind of see where it's coming from, but like when I because I didn't watch the ending, like the little ending scene after the credits for The Last Jedi. So when I saw episode 9 for the first time and the somehow Palpatine has returned, like I like looked to my girlfriend and I looked back at I was like, ain't no way, bro. We just went from The Last Jedi to somehow Palpatine has returned. Like, they didn't explain nothing. Nothing.
They did explain a teeny bit of somehow Palpatine returned in Fortnite, though. They dropped that info in Fortnite before the movie, so like all the kids were like, "Oh yeah, Palpatine's back." Why would you drop it in Fortnite though?
Wait, are you being dead ass? Like, for real?
I'm being dead ass.
I did not know that. I'm not even gonna pretend I did.
Yes, they dropped that information in Fortnite, like almost like a trailer. They had like a Star Wars event. They're like, "Oh, the movie's coming," and it was like somehow Palpatine returned. It's like a whole big, like, loud announcement in the game. I played it a little bit at the time, so I do remember a little bit of that. But yeah, like the kids might have known, but none of the rest of us were like, "Oh yeah, Palpatine, huh?"
I feel like they missed that. They missed the mark on their target audience, because like I get going for kids at Star Wars, but I think that like after the prequel trilogy, where like all the adults at the time just like did not like it, and we were all like, what do you mean, this is so cool. Hey, we've never seen lightsaber fighting like this. Like, anyone who saw the prequels after watching the OG trilogy and let me tell you something, I will never forget being in the theater for episode 2 at the end when Yoda and Dooku fight and Yoda pulls out his lightsaber. The theater went crazy. The theater went crazy. Like that
Yeah,
was
we went
so
nuts.
and I
It
feel
was
like
sick.
they missed their mark not targeting that specific generation with like the media.
Right.
Don't get me wrong, putting it in Fortnite is great. That is a large platform that's okay, but like we needed something too, because like Hunter said, like he played it, but like I'm not a Fortnite enthusiast. A lot of my friends are not Fortnite players either. How are we ever going to experience that, you know?
Right. I would have never have known that. And I was today years old when I found that out.
Yeah, I was today years old. Thank you, Winchie. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah, it was a really dumb thing. Like I knew it was coming. I knew Palpatine was coming back. Like I was prepared for that at the movie, and I wasn't planning to be mad about that because we know from Legends like Palpatine does return in Legends. So I figured I was like, okay, fine. I won't be mad about that. I'll be mad about everything else. You know, like fine, Palpatine's back. He probably used a clone. He, dropped his soul into it. Yeah, that's typical Palpatine stuff. Fine, but like nobody else who's like not read the books would know that, right? They're just like, how'd he come back? I'm sitting there like, yeah, this is the one thing I'm actually not mad about is him being back. Like everything else, I don't know, but like fine, he's back. I was expecting that eventually, right? It's just
See, I was too, but I thought that they were going to do something in like The Last Jedi. I thought they were going to be like, okay, well, Snoke is just like a deformed Palpatine clone, blah blah blah, something like that. Like I thought they were going to let us know, because like when I originally saw Snoke, I was like, who this motherfucker? Like, who are you? Like, but it never came. It just never came. So like I was okay with the like you said, when I was okay with the Palpatine return, but I wanted them to say this is how Palpatine returned before the movie where Palpatine returned. Yeah.
I was looking for at least some type of explanation. Like I wasn't mad that he came back. It was just the execution of him coming back. Just telling me somehow Palpatine returned, and I'm like, what do you mean somehow? I mean I've read the books too, and I'm like, okay, so he obviously may have cloned himself or something like that, but I need that explained to me.
Anyone who's a true Star Wars fan who immediately saw somehow Palpatine has returned was instantly like, okay, I can automatically think of 3 ways he could return.
Right.
Can you please tell me which one it is?
That's basically where I was. I was like, okay, there's a few ways he could have came back somehow. Which one is it? And
yeah, exactly.
Didn't get any of that.
And the only thing we get about Snoke is like when Ben goes into the temple there, right? We see like the tubes or the cloning pods, right? We see like a deformed looking Snoke kind of guy in there, right? So that's the only explanation we got. It was like, oh, he's making clones. It was just one tiny glimpse out of tube with a deformed head in it.
Yeah.
I mean, at least when those movies first came out, I was lacking a little bit of hope and a little bit of, I don't know, I felt like some of that initial wonder that I had when experiencing the Legends timeline and finding out like, oh, this new book is coming out soon, or oh, they're going to continue, this storyline. I had lost that initial wonder. I won't deny it. I lost that initial wonder, and I love Star Wars more than I love most things. But now I think that the series and some of the other media has definitely instilled some faith in me that I will have the questions that I want answered. It may not have been as immediate as I was looking forward to, but the fact that it is coming, or at least I assume that it's coming, has given me enough hope to want to persevere through it. I've just finished reading the last book in the Legends timeline. Of course, I'm going to go back and hit some other points to, just to kind of finish it up, make sure that I've got as much from that as I can. But soon, before the end of this year is over for sure, I will be starting those Disney books. So I will get some more of that in-between information that I am currently missing to see the bigger picture. And, maybe and this is my hope, at the end of it all, when I get that final view, when I finally able to step back and be like, okay, this is everything that Disney has done for the canon timeline. I just want to be able to say, I hope that I can smile and say, okay, well done, Disney. I agree with this, because they have done an excellent job. It's specifically series they have done an excellent job. Now, a couple of series have been kind of meh at points, but I think overall, I would give them a solid B plus on how they have taken the series, how they have used it to add information that we didn't originally have with the sequel trilogy. I'll give them a solid B plus on that. I think they've done a good job. Now, have I agreed with everything or have I liked everything? No, of course not. But I also didn't like everything that they did in Legends timeline. That's fair.
Right.
You know, there's gonna be stuff that
Yeah.
you don't like, but I just want them. I'm glad that at the steps that they have taken so far. But when it comes down to it, I want to say like 1 to 2 years from now, I want to be able to take a quick little step back, say, hey, this is everything that has for the most part come out, and this is everything that I know, and I'm okay with this. I give it a thumbs up. That's what I'm looking forward to. I'm gonna give them till 25. But that's what I'm looking for. When 2025 comes around, I'm gonna re-examine it and be like, okay, they've done a good job, but they could do better. Or okay, this is not where I thought it was going. I still love Star Wars, but you know, it's not really what I want. I need this, and that. But with everything that's been announced, I'm looking forward to it, man. It looks real good. It's looking real good.
Definitely looking hopeful. You got to give credit to Dave Filoni for the work that he's been doing. I've always said you gotta sometimes with some of these sci-fi movies and stuff like that, especially with Star Wars, you have to put somebody in charge who's good at making movies, but also knows Star Wars.
Yeah, David Filoni and Jon Favreau are doing a
the two of
job.
Yeah, Jon Favreau too. The two of them have been knocking it out of the park, and I believe they're gonna say the two of them together are gonna save the franchise.
I believe that also.
I think Jon Favreau is trying really hard to save it. Dave Filoni's a really good producer and all that kind of stuff. But I think behind the scenes, like, it's Jon Favreau. He wants Star Wars to be Star Wars again.
Yeah. It was Jon Favreau I was trying to think of, but I know Dave Filoni has also had a big part of it too.
I will always respect Filoni for the Clone Wars because, like, I always knew about Anakin, and like, it's not that I have nothing against what's his name, Christian Haydenson. Like, I love him, and I love the Anakin that he played, but I love the detail in which I got to know Anakin through Filoni. I will always respect him for that.
Yeah, you really, really got to know him
because
on a definitely more personal level.
Yeah, because episode 2 to episode 3 is a big jump for some people because they're like, "What happened?" But then you see the Clone Wars, and you're like, "Okay, well, I know what happened. I'm sorry, bro. I feel you, man. I'd probably be ready to go to the dark side, also."
Yeah, for real. Like, after watching all of Clone Wars, I was like, I understand Anakin a lot more.
Yeah, like what they did with what Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau are trying to save. Like, my grandfather is the one who got me into Star Wars. I was like 4 or 5 years old, and my mom had like gone off to do some like work stuff, and she had told him not to show me Star Wars, but he did it anyway, and we marathoned like the whole series, right? And like, I fell in love with Star Wars back then. I took him to see The Force Awakens and Rogue One, and when we left the Force Awakens theater, the only comment he had was, "That was not Star Wars." Just going back to your points earlier, like, he's been watching since the very first one. He's read all the books too. He's seen every movie. He loves Star Wars so much, and his only comment was, "That was not Star Wars."
Yeah, it was something trying to be Star Wars, and it's something that's getting close to being Star Wars. But yeah, that's how I feel also.
Yeah, nowadays I have hope. Like, Rogue One was top tier, like, coming back, trying to save things, bringing something into the movie verse that actually advanced the plot, answered some questions, was awesome, had cool space battles. What Star Wars is about, right? It's literally Star Wars, not, Desert Kid Wars. And that was great. And then we got Mandalorian season 1. That was awesome. And we get Book of Boba Fett was good. Like, and then all these questions are getting answered in these like side shows, especially like Andor, this awesome show. And then Rebels, right?
Andor was so good.
I loved Rebels too, but man, those thin lightsabers.
I actually have hope. Like, after the Rise of Skywalker, I lost a little hope in Star Wars. I was, not like reading the books anymore. And I still haven't really gotten back into it. Like, I had read all the books, previously, the Legends books, but I haven't started the Disney ones because it just instilled so little faith in the series for me. Is like, this is not going to be something worth, you know, keeping up with, reading the books, anything like that, because they just keep butchering, you know, a great IP that they have, right? But then we got these new shows, and we finished out the Clone Wars, and you know, we're answering questions, we're going back, like, we got a great show that's answering so many questions, tying everything in. Like, that show brought me back into loving Star Wars. That and Andor, right? They like,
Mhm.
I started to like heart. I mean, I was always a fanboy, right? It's my identity. But once those shows started coming out, and I started to see like they can do something amazing with what they have, and they're starting to choose to actually do something amazing with what they have, I have hope that the future of the series is going to be amazing, and I just want to be around to like experience that, because I do actually have hope now that, you know, Disney can do something great with this.
Oh yeah, and you know, I actually didn't know that you hadn't started any of the Disney books. So when you
Mm-mm.
start, let me know, because
Oh,
I've, you know, did I tell you I've got all of them except for like 6. Like I have
no,
all of the
yeah.
Disney books.
Now
I
we'll do
just
a book club. Like, seriously, I
let's go.
haven't read any of the new ones. I lost hope that like they were gonna be good at all. I've seen a lot of like comments about how the High Republic is awesome. So I know I need to
Yeah.
get back into it. Yeah, I'm totally down to like read them all. We'll do a book club, talk about it in the podcast. It'll be great.
Yeah, the second I found out they had brought back a whole bunch of people like John Jackson Miller, Timothy Zahn, James Luceno, like a bunch of my favorite authors from the Legends timeline, I was like, all right, maybe have to give the books a shot. Cause like the second I saw those names, I was like, oh yes. And then I've heard nothing but good things about Claudia Gray. I heard she been killing it Star Wars wise. So I'm excited to see some of these new authors in the Star Wars game too. But I'm also, like you said, you know, I have hope now, especially knowing that to some degree Luke Skywalker is in the hands of Filoni and Favreau, especially so, at least to some degree, you know, like with the Mandalorian. So we have some way to tie him on. You know, we've seen the first images of his Jedi Academy being built, so we're getting, you know, some Luke, some more Luke that we can, you know, go off of, and that's what I'm looking forward to. I'm looking to see why we got what version of the characters that we knew, like Luke,
That
Han,
we
and
did.
Leia, that we did.
Yeah.
Exactly. I want to see what led to that, because maybe there is some solace in that information. Maybe I can be like, okay, that makes sense. I understand. Because right now I don't. Han and Leia would never split up like that. Luke would never separate himself from Han and Leia the way he did. It just wasn't like,
Right.
as Mark Hamill said, that's not the Luke that I grew up with. It's not the same. So I want to see, well, okay, if that's the case, if this is not the same Luke, and I am okay with it not being the same Luke, why did he get that way? And what evidence, what, you know, traumatic experience, what exposition can you give me to justify this Luke that I now have to live with as the main canon Luke? But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that has been our little sectional today about Luke Skywalker. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. It has been absolutely wonderful, and we look forward to catching you guys on the next episode.